All right, everybody, welcome back to our first website. Let's go ahead and spend some time getting our index page HTML set to go. So we're going to do a couple of things that we haven't done yet to this point, and we're going to add some things onto our HTML, make this look like a nice little page. Maybe we've done some of it, not totally sure, but we're going to do it again here. So where we need to start is between our nav and our container. Just going to put a couple of enters right in there underneath nav above our container. Our code is going to go right here in that particular space. And the thing that we are going to do is we're going to create another division on the page, another box, another div. And we're going to call this one a class of Jumbotron. And that's just a word that they use, maybe more so in the past than now, but I just kind of like it, so I use it. And this is like a large focal image that you see on a page when you go to it right away. So, as a demonstration of what Jumbotron would be, this is Home Depot's website. And what this section right up here is this large focal area. This is a similar thing to what Jumbotron would be. Theirs has a couple of different things. Obviously, Home Depot is a pretty intense site. They have some deals scrolling, they have a couple of other specials. Again, this is call to action things that it's like reasons you would come to the site and reasons you would click there to go do whatever. But this large area right here, this focal point is a Jumbotron, and we're going to do a very basic form of that in our code. So our Jumbotron is going to have a couple of different parts. Let me get back to our code here. Our Jumbotron is going to have an image, and this image will have an SRC, not an SCR, remember, an SRC. And then we'll just put an alt. And these are just placeholders for right now. We're going to do far more as we go. And then we have one more section that we need to create inside. And this is going to be for all of the elements inside of our Jumbotron. Jumbotron-inner. So these are all the inner elements. What we're going to do is we're going to have like a heading in here. We're going to have like a little paragraph in here, as opposed to putting like an assignment title up in the header section here. We're actually going to put it inside of the Jumbotron instead. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's take our H1 and our paragraph from our header. Not the HR per se. We don't need the HR. And for our header, we're just going to replace that with placeholder. Just so we don't have our header go away altogether, and so it's represented. And inside of our Jumbotron intersection right here, we want our H1 and our paragraph for our assignment. So what this is going to allow us to do is not have this massive chunk of space used at the top of the page. This is going to be in front of an image that we put in here later. So our Jumbotron stuff is now kind of situated, and it's a pretty simple setup, but there's kind of a lot to it. We'll get into it when we do the CSS. HTML for this stuff is generally pretty easy. The CSS is a little bit more. So we have now our Jumbotron section, and we have our stuff in there. We're good. Inside of our container now for our main page content, what we're going to do is we're going to use a row setup for this. So we're going to use, in this case, we'll have like 3 rows. And then let's just go ahead and do some comments real quick. So we'll have row 1. This is where we're going to write all of our code right now. And we're they call this in some instances pseudocode, because we're kind of creating places for the code to go, but not doing the actual code. So we're going to have row 1. And then after we finish our row setup, We'll paste it under row 2 and paste it under row 3. Hopefully this will end up being pretty easy for you. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to use some more comments here. So we'll say row 2, and we'll say this will be the end of row 2. And then your code will go in between this, on, in this case, line 50. So row 3 will do the same setup. So this should make it a little bit easier for us to know where to put the code. Some of the stuff, it gets to be a lot of code. It gets to be a little bit confusing. So if we have kind of our spot set up before it gets crazy, this should be easier to do. So row 2 will go in there, row 3 will go in there. We'll do that in a moment. So first off, in our row setup, we have our class of row, just like we did before. And then inside, we're going to have essentially 2 more parts of this row. We'll have kind of a left side and a right side, or we'll have an image, and then we'll have some content. So what we're going to do inside of our row, we have a couple more divs. Row image. And then we have one more. And we'll say this is row content. So we have an image in here inside of our row image. We're going to have an image tag. And what we're going to do, actually, we can not type that. We'll just go take the one we already typed for Jumbotron. It's the same thing. We're just going to do a placeholder for right now so it doesn't get so crazy. And we'll just have inside of our row image our image tag. Now, notice that if you do something incorrect, like for example, that the colors kind of invert here and you have the X, be very careful that you have all of these things right. You copy all the carets and everything to make sure it doesn't get weird. So inside of our row, and a row image is just literally going to be an image. But what we do when we do the CSS is we size the box that we put that in, as opposed to doing CSS for the actual image. So inside of our row content, we're going to have an H3. So that'll be a row header right there. And then our paragraph tag, we will do row, just some kind of placeholder text. So the setup's going to be, you have a picture on one side that is something related to whatever we're talking about. And that'll be kind of the setup. So let's go ahead and put that where we need it to go. So we have row 1 is all of this code before row 2. So now we have our row image, row content, all that stuff. Copy that all, and we have a space that we put this already for. Row 2 is going to go between row 2 and the end of row 2. And then the same thing for row 3. So hopefully having the comments here makes it a little bit easier to see where things go, and to make it so when we do copy and paste that it's easier. I think it's very inefficient to have to retype these things. It just breeds errors and frustration. So although it's sometimes annoying to have to paste, it's really the easiest way for you. So let's take a look at our page. It's not going to look like a whole lot right now, I will warn you. So we have our Jumbotron spot where that's going to go, and we have our 3 rows with an image and a little bit of text. That's what it should look like for right now. That is indeed the HTML setup. So what we're going to do in the next video, we're going to go through the CSS, which is going to be obviously a lot more than just this. So this HTML is done, CSS coming up in our next video.